Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive deep.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Today we're tackling a big one, folks. We're talking about the Buddhist idea of anatta.
Or as it's sometimes called, non-self.
Right, exactly. Non-self. Now I know that might sound a little intimidating.
It's a little heady, maybe.
Yeah, a little heady. But trust me on this, we've got an amazing guide today.
We do.
We're going to break it all down and we're going to make it make sense.
That's right. And hopefully even make it a little fun along the way.
Exactly, because it's not just some abstract philosophy, right? This is about understanding ourselves in a whole new light.
I like that. A whole new light.
So let's bring in our expert for this deep dive. Someone who can really illuminate this idea of non-self for us.
Well, when we talk about non-self, it's almost impossible not to think about what came before it. You see, in ancient India, everyone was kind of obsessed with this idea of atta, this permanent soul.
Okay, so like the opposite of non-self.
Exactly. They believed in this permanent self that was on this big cosmic journey to, merge with Brahma.
Brahma, right, the ultimate reality. So kind of like everyone was on this quest to level up their soul.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the ultimate video game, and everyone was trying to reach the highest level.
Okay, I'm getting that. So where does the Buddha fit into all of this?
Well, that's the fascinating part. The Buddha comes along, and he basically flips the script. He's like, what if this whole idea of a permanent self, this atta thing, what if it's actually the problem?
Okay, now that's interesting. So instead of trying to achieve this ultimate self, the Buddha's saying, maybe we've got it all wrong.
Precisely. He's saying maybe it's the clinging to this idea of a permanent self that's causing all the suffering.
Yeah, okay. So how do we even begin to wrap our heads around that? If there's no self, then what are we?
That's where things get really interesting. See, anatta isn't about denying that you have experiences or a personality. It's more about recognizing that what we cling to as me, it's not this solid, unchanging thing.
Okay, so it's not like we just disappear or something.
Not at all. Think about it like a river.
A river.
Yeah, a river, you see how the water flows in one direction?
Yeah.
Clinging to a fixed sense of self, it's like trying to swim against that current. Exactly. Anatta is about having the courage to turn around, to go with the flow, and to see where the river takes you.
I like that. Going with the flow instead of fighting against it.
Yeah.
But it's not passive, right? It still takes effort to let go of what we think we know about ourselves.
You got it. It takes a willingness to see things in a new way, to be open to the unknown, and that's where things get really exciting.
Okay, so we're talking about going with the flow, letting go of that fixed sense of self. But how do we actually do that? It still feels kind of, I don't know, abstract.
It's a process for sure, and it's where we can really start digging into those 5 aggregates. You remember those? The khandhas.
Right, the breakdown of what we usually think of as me. I have to admit, that part felt a little dense to me, like trying to understand a whole car by looking at a list of parts.
That's a great analogy. And that's exactly what the 5 aggregates are doing. Imagine you're trying to fix a car, but you only have this vague idea of car. The 5 aggregates are like lifting the hood and seeing all the parts. The engine, the transmission, the wheels, and so on.
Okay, so instead of this blurry idea of me, we're getting a clearer picture of what's actually going on.
Exactly. It helps us see that what we call self is really just a collection of these different parts. The body, sensations, perceptions, thoughts and emotions, and consciousness.
Right. I'm remembering that now.
Yeah.
But how does that help us let go?
Because when we see that these are just different parts, we can start to see that none of them are really me in this solid, unchanging way.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
But if none of these parts are really me, then what's the problem? What's keeping us stuck?
It's the clinging. It's when we grab onto any of these parts, whether it's our thoughts, our emotions, our possessions, and say, this is me, this is mine. That's what causes the suffering.
Ah, okay. So it's not the parts themselves, but our attachment to them. Like, it's not wrong to want a nice car, but if we get so attached to it that we define ourselves by it, that's when we run into trouble.
Precisely. And that's where that image of the hamster wheel comes in, right?
The hamster wheel. I was wondering when that was coming back. It's such a good visual, though.
Yeah.
But I'm still not totally clear on what's fueling that frantic running.
Good question. It all comes down to what Buddhism calls tanha, often translated as desire or craving.
Desire. But don't we need desire to, get out of bed in the morning?
Of course, there's nothing wrong with desire itself. It's what motivates us, right? It helps us to learn, to grow, to connect with the world. But the problem is when that desire becomes this insatiable thirst, when we get so caught up in chasing after things that we forget to appreciate what we have.
Right. It's like that saying, I'll be happy when, but then even when you get that thing, it's on to the next thing.
Exactly. It's like trying to fill a bottomless pit. And Ajahn talks about how this craving actually comes in 3 different flavors. We've got the desire for sensory pleasure.
Okay, so that's the easy one. That's like wanting that delicious meal, that new gadget, that rush from social media, right?
Exactly. It's all about seeking gratification from the outside world.
Yep. I think we can all relate to that one. What about the other 2 flavors?
So we've got the desire for becoming. And this one's a bit sneakier. It's that deep-seated yearning to be someone or something specific, to be successful, to be loved, to be recognized.
Oh, wow. That one hits close to home. It's that feeling of, I'm not good enough yet, but I will be when.
You got it. It's about constantly striving for some future state of being, never quite feeling content in the present moment.
Man, that's so true. Okay, so we've got the desire for pleasure, the desire for becoming. What's the third one?
The third one might surprise you. It's the desire for non-existence.
Wait, the desire to not exist. Isn't that a little dark?
It's not necessarily about wanting to die, no. It's more about that urge to escape, to check out, to numb ourselves from the intensity of experience.
Like when you've had a crazy day and you just want to collapse on the couch and binge watch something mindless.
Exactly. Or reach for that extra glass of wine, scroll endlessly through social media. It's anything we do to avoid feeling uncomfortable emotions, to just shut it all out for a little while.
Wow, okay. I never thought about it like that, but it makes sense. So these 3 kinds of craving, they're all keeping that hamster wheel spinning, keeping us trapped in this cycle of suffering.
You got it.
Okay, so we've got this hamster wheel, right?
Yep.
And it's powered by these cravings, these desires, spinning us through these 5 aggregates that we mistake for a solid self. It's a lot, and honestly, it can feel kind of overwhelming. So where do we even begin to step off this crazy ride?
Well, that's the beauty of the Buddha's teachings. He doesn't just point out the problem, right? He offers a path forward, a way out of that cycle of suffering.
Okay, I like the sound of that. What is it, some kind of secret cheat code?
You could say that. It's called the Noble Eightfold Path.
Eightfold path, got it. Is this like a to-do list for, like, enlightenment?
Not exactly a to-do list. Think of it more like a roadmap. It's a set of guidelines to help us cultivate wisdom, cultivate compassion, and ultimately find liberation from suffering. And remember what Ajahn says, it's not about being perfect, it's about the journey itself.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better, because I'm not sure I'm ready to be enlightened just yet, but a journey, I can handle a journey.
Yeah.
So where does this journey, this eightfold path, lead us? What's the destination?
Well, the interesting thing is, it's not so much about reaching a final destination, but about transforming ourselves along the way. And that transformation happens on different levels. Ajahn breaks the Eightfold Path down into 3 sections: Sila, Samadhi, and Panna.
Sila, Samadhi, and Panna. Okay, got to be honest, those sound a little intimidating.
They're just words, but they represent powerful concepts. Think of Sila as the foundation. It's often translated as ethical conduct, but it's really about aligning our actions with wisdom and compassion.
So it's not just about, like, following a set of rules.
Right. It's about understanding that our actions have consequences, both for ourselves and for others. It's about cultivating generosity, honesty, kindness. It's about showing up in the world in a way that benefits everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. What about Samadhi? That one sounds like meditation, right?
It does, and meditation is definitely a part of it. But Samadhi is really about cultivating a focused and stable mind. It's about being present, here and now, without getting swept away by every thought and emotion that pops up.
Oh, so it's like training your mind to stay focused. Kind of like training for a marathon, but for your brain.
Exactly. It takes practice, but the more we cultivate Samadhi, the more we're able to see things clearly, without judgment. And that's where Panna comes in.
Panna, the final piece of the puzzle. What's that all about?
Panna is wisdom. It's about seeing the world as it really is, without the distortion of our preconceived ideas and judgments. It's about recognizing the impermanence of everything, including that idea of a solid, unchanging self.
So through ethical conduct, a focused mind, and wisdom, we start to see through the illusion of a separate self.
Exactly. We start to see that everything is connected, and that's where true freedom lies.
And that brings us back to Vakagota, right? The guy who kept asking the Buddha if the self exists or not.
Yes, and the Buddha wouldn't give him a straight answer.
Why not? I mean, it seems like a pretty straightforward question.
Because the Buddha knew that no answer, no matter how profound, would satisfy Vakagota's need for certainty. True understanding, he was saying, comes from direct experience.
Ah, so it's not about having all the answers, but about being open to the journey itself.
Precisely. And that journey can be challenging. It's natural to feel resistance, even fear, when we start to question our deeply held beliefs. That's where self-compassion comes in.
Ah, self-compassion. That reminds me of the closing meditation Ajahn Chemistry talks about, the practice of dedicating merit, or punyanya. It's like saying, hey, even if I don't have it all figured out, even if I stumble and make mistakes, I can still offer any goodness I've cultivated to the well-being of others. It's a beautiful way to end our deep dive, don't you think?
It really is, because ultimately, this journey isn't just about personal enlightenment. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness and contributing to a more compassionate and connected world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Anatta, I'm left with a sense of possibility. What if, just maybe, letting go of that tight grip on a fixed sense of self is the key to unlocking a whole new way of being?
It's a question worth exploring, that's for sure.
It certainly is. And who knows what we might discover along the way. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep going with the flow.